I love historical ruins. When you stand among the remains, there's a sense of awe of those who walked the same spaces centuries before you. I just never thought that one day the historical ruins I'd be walking into would be my own family's. Traveling is my oxygen. Not the beach vacation kind, but the kind where you're staying in a yurt along the Silk Road in Kazakhstan, wondering what daily life is like here. Or trekking in the Sinyan Mountains in Ethiopia alongside villagers wearing their white shamas, wondering where are they off to? You return from these types of travels full of curiosity, inspired, with the aperture of your worldview widened just a little bit more. Growing up Chinese American, my immigrant parents always wondered why I couldn't stay still. They couldn't understand why I needed to go somewhere. Why couldn't I just stay local? Our family vacations consisted of driving from our home in LA to the Las Vegas Strip. My parents would half joke, why would I need to go to Paris when I can see the Egyptian pyramids and the Eiffel Tower all in the same block? Technically, we actually travel a lot as a family. In my 12 years of schooling, I went to 10 different schools, from Boston to San Diego to LA to San Antonio. Traveling when it was not necessary, according to my parents, was frivolous. A waste of time and hard-earned money. But in those constant displacements, I found the transformational power of going to a new place. That traveler's mindset inspired a move from San Francisco to Shanghai in 2019. On the cusp of a global pandemic, we thought, spend 9 months as a young family abroad, kid, husband, dog in tow, and we'll return to our home in the mission. We had no idea what adventures would arise for us, but we had faith that if we went with an intention, it would unfold in some meaningful way. COVID, however, had other plans, and the year turned into a few more. With borders closed, we set our sights on exploring within China. Our first excursion was to the province just south of Shanghai, to the coastal city of Taizhou. We were traveling with some friends, and taking retreat among these beautiful bamboo groves. But this place sounded oddly familiar, and I called up my uncle and asked, hey, where's that place they said Gongong was from? Turns out, it's Taizhou, a place my maternal grandfather left 80 years ago as a young doctor to fight in the Civil War and never had a chance to return. Of all the 1,355 counties in China, we landed here. And so, nestled among the mandarin orange groves, my son and I became the first of our generation to sweep my great-grandfather's tomb. Reconnecting with my extended family has always been in the back of my mind. But the serendipitous moment reignited that interest of lineage tracing, sparking this intrigue, this curiosity into discovery. And in 2021, we spend the year traveling to the ancestral villages of each of my grandparents. My paternal grandpa, my Yeye, always told stories of his childhood in this palatial place on the outskirts of Beijing. They were wealthy landowners with multiple courtyards, multiple wives, and the fortified walls that enclosed this land, a chariot of 6 horses could parade down. It was like Bridgerton, just the Chinese version. Hearing these stories as a 12-year-old in the dining room table of our suburban California tract home felt otherworldly, fantastical, a place that seemed it would forever stay in the confines of my imagination. Until now. We land in Beijing and take my 2-year-old to the local playground, which we always do when we're on the road. I see the usual grandparents taking their grandkids out while the parents get some rest. But this time, I felt transported. Every person around me had my grandpa's same Beijing accent, that Beijing Hua. It felt like my grandpa was with us, playing with his great-grandson. It was like this matrix moment where I'm shifting between these two worlds. No longer is this Beijing accent in the confines of our dining table in LA. Here in Beijing, his accent was home. As I'm acclimating to this oddly familiar place, we jump into a car off the expressway along the northern city wall of Beijing. My second cousin, whom I had never met, is picking us up and escorting the family to the ancestral village. A true Beijing native, surely, I believed, in his 15 years, his parents had been dragging him there so many times he was annoyed. But when I asked, so, how was this ancestral home? He actually said, I don't know. I didn't even know about it until your gugu, my aunt, reached out to me. Wait, what? Yeah, our family doesn't really talk about the family history. If you were a landlord during the Cultural Revolution, you were blacklisted. Yes, of course. I wrote papers about this in my college Chinese history classes, of the proletariat taking over and turning the class structure on its head, and a land revolution that seized the elite's property. Except I never connected it to my own history. No one had been to this ancestral home, not because they weren't curious about it, because they didn't know about it, and even if they did, it wasn't something you shared openly. You never mentioned you owned land. I thought my extended family just didn't care, but in reality, they were living in a totally different political system where their family history was a liability. On this 3-hour-long car ride from China's capital to the countryside, I gained a perspective of the other side of my family. I had only known the stories of those who had fled. I didn't know the stories of those who had stayed behind. Sociologist Jack Measrow coined this perspective transformation, where one discovers a need to acquire new perspectives in order to gain a more complete understanding of changing events. Travel allows you to see yourself in the context of a much larger world, to see ourselves in relation to other systems. The thing is, when we think travel, we tend to conjure up these images of glamorous destinations, of white sand beaches, of sashaying palm trees. But the journey to my ancestral village in Boya County was nothing close to that. We drove down a typical expressway that you'd see anywhere in the world, probably because China builds most of them. But it was the journey of a lifetime for me. To ride in that courtyard with my 2-year-old son was fantasy morphing into reality. It was that one place that always seemed just out of grasp. I had no address. I really didn't even know where it was, except just a little bit south of Beijing. And it really wasn't possible to find this place until a few years ago, when my aunt found it with the help of a few Catholic nuns. What's left of our family's palatial grounds isn't much more than a dilapidated pile of bricks and rotted wood, ignored for more than 70 years. Of the countless courtyards, the only one remaining is the horse caretakers. It was so insignificant that it was the only part of the family grounds that no one thought was worth destroying. But standing there, amidst the rubble, on a Tuesday afternoon in May, with the sun shining through the trees, I can almost imagine the neighing of the horses, the clinking of my great-grandfather's teacup, the smell of dumplings wafting from the chef's quarters, the mischievous giggle of my grandpa playing hide-and-seek with his brothers, a giggle that was echoed in my own son. Being in the same place where my family has lived for 600 years, it's a transcending experience. I've traveled to all these ruins that have no relation to me. And here I am in this ruin that is directly connected to me. I'm not saying everyone go run out and visit your ancestral home. What I'm saying is that if there's something that is left undone, go do it. Make that trip you've been meaning to take and invite those moments for personal transformation. Mine was going to visit our family home. What's yours? You just might find yourself standing in your ancestors' courtyard.